Your voice is extremely deep today, so it'd be funny if it stays deep throughout the review. You go listen to like one of the shows and listen to the review. It'll be very much lower.
Huh, interesting. Maybe it's the mic making my voice sound deeper.
Could be that. Yeah. Hey.
Be sexy. Okay, I think that sounds nice right there. Some good looking levels. Okay. All right, hello there. Welcome back to, I guess not welcome back if you're joining us for the first time. This is our first bonus episode and our first review altogether. Yeah. So, that's Ben, as you just heard.
Hey.
If you're familiar with us, you know that. And I'm Jake. And today we're talking about Black Panther, which we saw Thursday night. It is now Saturday morning. There was some scheduling issues for us to record this. But we're here now, a little bit late, and we're just going to get into it. So
yeah. Well, first when we get into it, we're going to do first non-spoilers and then go into spoilers.
Yeah.
We'll give you a warning when we go full spoiler.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, you can stick around for 10 minutes or whatever, and we'll give you a heads up before we jump into spoilers. Then you can just click away, but you'll get our general thoughts and whatnot. So that's it. We can get into it then. All right. So
yes, we can. Yeah.
We were at the same theater, but we didn't see it together. You were just a couple rows in front of me.
Yeah.
But we have yet to talk about.
Yes, we have not. We only did a quick text of you asked me, did I approve of the film, and then I had said yes, and then I had asked you the same question, and you had said you approved. So beyond that, we have not talked about it.
Yeah. So really, we know we both like it, but we don't know to what extent, or. So do you wanna kick it off with maybe some of your favorite things, some things you want to talk about? I'll just follow
All right.
you up.
Well, you know what? I'll start off with standouts out of the film, and I got to start off with Michael B. Jordan. And let me say first off, seeing this movie, I only seen the first teaser and then the full trailer, so I ain't seen much going into it. So I heard the first impressions of people seeing it. And besides that, I didn't know much. So one thing I did expect, though, I know the MCU, there's been some criticisms of not so good villains. I had high hopes for Michael B. Jordan as Eric Killmonger because of Ryan Coogler. Those two, obviously they work great together. Fruitvale Station, Ryan Coogler directed that, Michael B. Jordan starred, and then Creed, and now Black Panther. I had high hopes for Michael B. Jordan to be a great villain. And I'll start off with saying that I do think he's a phenomenal villain, but not just is he a villain, he's a compelling character. A lot of the things going around him, I could really, especially with stuff that was going on within the week, I could really identify with what he was going for. Now, obviously, he is a villain in the movie, so he does some bad things. But with that being said, his motives, you can understand and get behind. So I gotta say, for me, I think he is the best MCU villain. Now, another standout for me would be T'Challa's sister, which is, I gotta remember the names here. Shuri. She was another phenomenal. Black Panther as a whole, I think they handled their female characters brilliantly. They were badass and handled with care. And I think Shuri was the standout. She was not to say comic relief, but she had the funny moments throughout the film. And Lupita Nyong'o, I didn't know what to expect from her because again I didn't see the much trailers or TV spots, and then seeing her in the film as let's see if I can remember her name, Nikita, I think. She was another show stealer, and then another show stealer would be Okoye. Those four for me were the ones that stood out, and I was like, I really love these characters. I really want to see more from them, and I'll stop there because I can go on forever, and I want to hear your thoughts, your impressions of it, the film.
Okay, I'm going to backtrack to the Michael B. Jordan discussion that you brought up. I wanted to talk about all the other cast and everything, but just for now, Michael B. Jordan. At first, he has a scene closer to the beginning, and I think it's one of the best scenes in the movie. But at first, I wasn't sure how I was going to take this film because I find Michael B. Jordan just is so likable. in all his other roles, and just he has a really likable presence. So I was scared. Am I actually gonna root against this guy, or am I just gonna be like on his side the whole time? And it's interesting because you do root against him, but you also get where he's coming from. Like you were saying, he is a villain. He does do bad things, and in real life, these are not things that you would want from someone. But in the movie, it really works because you get exactly where he's coming from, and I think he is one of the, if not the best MCU villain. He's great in the role. Oh no, maybe I'll save that for spoilers. That's all I'll say about him for now. And then you were getting into the rest of the cast, and I actually have notes here about the standouts, and Latita Wright, I believe, is that how you pronounce her name? Who played Black Panther's sister?
Yes, I believe so.
I believe it's Latita Wright.
Yeah, I could be wrong there, but I do believe that's how you pronounce it.
Okay. For the exception of one joke that she has, which was incredibly cringy, I think she was incredible and very funny. This movie, you said she's not the comedic relief, but maybe she is, and even if I say that, I don't think that's a bad thing at all. She was like legitimately funny, and all her comedic moments and everyone's comedic moments never took away from any of the drama or any of the heart going on. I know a lot of people hated that about Guardians 2, where they sacrifice a heartfelt moment or a dramatic moment for a comedic beat. This movie never had that, but the comedy was so strong, and her character was just symbolic of that. I thought she was consistently funny and charming and really good. Andy Serkis was a big surprise for me. His character, I won't say much more, but Andy Serkis was incredible as always. Chadwick Boseman, he's Black Panther, so not many people are talking about him because they've had him in a previous movie. They know what to expect, but I don't think that means he should get swept under the rug. I think Chadwick Boseman was also incredible.
Phenomenal.
So
yes.
Those are some cast members that stood out to me, and of course Michael B. Jordan being the amazing villain that he was.
I want to give another shout out, and when you hear this, you may think it was a very minimal role, but for what was done in that role, and this might also be because I love this actor, Sterling K. Brown. I love the TV show This Is Us, so him as Randall, he's amazing. However, he's got a very minimal role in Black Panther, Sterling K. Brown, as Nujaba, which I could have just butchered the name. But for what he has to do, he kills it and brings in certain emotion that makes you care about certain events that goes on within the movie. I'm not sure if you feel the same way.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. I just going to be wary of spoilers. I mean, I listed a few standouts to me, but if you look at the cast, I don't think you'll find a weak link.
It is a killer cast. Everybody's firing on all cylinders.
Yeah,
and
no,
when we
definitely.
get to more spoiler stuff, there's one character that I could have used less of, but I'll get more into that in spoilers.
Oh, now I'm curious. I don't know if I can think of who. Oh, maybe I can. All right, I think I know who you're talking about. We'll wait. Some other things I want to point out for that are great before we get into spoilers and whatnot is I think this is the best music in any MCU movie. MCU movies typically have, for the exception of the Avengers theme, their music is all kind of one note, very similar, and it never really stands out to me. Of course, you have the Guardians soundtracks, which those are excellent too. But the score and the soundtrack of this movie complement this movie so well. The album that came out with it is of course scattered throughout this movie, and it all works really well. There's a great song that plays during this fight scene around the middle of the movie that is wonderful. I don't want to talk about specific scenes because you don't know how wary people are of spoilers, but the music that is used in this movie is excellent.
Yes, I gotta totally agree. The score, which you had mentioned with previous MCU movies, the score works, but it's nothing like it doesn't stand out like the Avengers theme. That's iconic. And the score within this movie, it really works, and it is, like you said, different. And then the use of the soundtrack was, I think, perfect. And I got to talk about a few other things before we move on to spoilers. is I gotta say I love the world building of Wakanda, and I'm not sure if you felt this way. And I talked to somebody else, and I want to say they agreed because I don't remember them disagreeing with. And I think we even talked about this if you've listened to any of our previous shows. You may have heard us talk about this. Is that MCU movies, they tend to have a certain look to them, and they all tend to match that look, which rightfully so. It's a connected universe, so you might want to see some familiarity in the look. However, Black Panther, I think it does fit the tone of an MCU movie, but the way it was shot and the way it looked felt different for me, and in a good way. It was beautiful. It felt much like Thor Ragnarok. It was a Taika Waititi film, for better or worse. I think Black Panther was a Ryan Coogler film, and I think definitely for the better. And another thing I gotta mention is I love the fight scenes in Creed, which Ryan Coogler directed. And you get some long take fight scenes. The fight scenes in Black Panther are wonderful, and it's what I expected from Ryan Coogler.
I half agree with you. I think this movie does remind me of Thor Ragnarok in that they both have colorful sets and colorful costumes. However, there's consistently this gray wash over every MCU movie that this movie still has. It still feels, but like you said, it's all part of the same universe, so maybe you want that consistency, in which case that's fine. However, this movie does. That's one of my negatives, but it's also just not that big of a deal, just because it's what I've come to expect. There is that just like it's the color grading or something about it. It's just kind of lifeless and just kind of just like washed over. I wouldn't know exactly how to describe it, but I think that's the best way I could do it. And I think there's a few moments that feel really inspired. There's a couple scenes and shots that come to mind that feel like this is a director's movie. However, I think the vast majority of the movie does feel very MCU and very not Ryan Coogler's movie. Maybe just the way it looks. It feels like that. But these aren't crazy negative things because it's what I've come to expect from the MCU. I find like every MCU movie, they all feel similar and they all look similar, and then each one has moments for the director to shine and actually feel like their piece. So yeah, I vary from you a little bit there, but I'm complaining, but it's really not a big deal to me just because that's how it's molded to be now. I'm trying to just look at these quick notes that I just pulled out of my ass about 2 minutes before we started recording to talk about some things. We don't get into spoilers, just maybe one more negative thing. I thought there's some subpar CGI bits here and there where they cut between in-camera footage and some CGI footage that maybe doesn't work as well as it should. And I'm going to leave it at that until we get into spoilers because I want to talk about like actual specific moments that would ruin the movie.
Yeah, so. I heard, somebody had mentioned that also to me, but I didn't pick up on bad CGI at least the first time. I'm going to be going for a second time soon, so maybe
I don't know if I'd call it bad. Just maybe underwhelming, or I don't know if I'd go so far to say it's bad, but
yeah, the one person that I'm thinking of, they had mentioned that it was, to quote them, terrible CGI. Which,
oh wow, okay, yeah, no, I wouldn't go
which
terrible.
Is something I didn't
just
notice.
Noticeable. Noticeable, underwhelming. I think those words fit a little better. But any other negatives you want to say, or any other things you want to say before we jump into spoilers?
I'll save my negatives for when we get into spoilers.
All right, let's just give a quick warning here. We're going to talk about spoilers now. If you have yet to see the movie, go see the movie because I think we both definitely recommend it. It's a really good movie. It's a great movie. Yeah, and if you're a fan of the MCU,
Phenomenal.
You won't be disappointed, right? I mean, it's that formula. You're gonna like it, and it does some great things that other MCU movies haven't done. So, go see it. Let's get into spoilers. You ready, Ben?
I am ready, and you know what? I'll lead off with things that maybe didn't work for me, so I can talk more about things that did. There are very minimal things that I didn't like. Now, I'll start off with the one character I could have used less of. And it's Martin Freeman's character.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I didn't like the character of him. I thought he was much better than in Civil War, because in Civil War, Martin Freeman, he was not to say misplaced, but I didn't care, and I care a bit more in Black Panther, specifically with the whole casino scene. And when we get to Wakanda, when he's there, I'm on board. Now the thing that because it's not a big dislike, it's just something I could have used less of. It's when he has his I guess heroic scene when he is taking out the ships that have the vibranium on them. And I just didn't care at that point of what he was doing, because there were so many other things going on that I would rather see. So for when he came up, it was like, all right, I mean, I don't dislike it, but I'd rather move on from here. Another thing that I guess we'll go on actor-wise. I didn't know this, but I heard that Forrest Whitaker's son was in the movie, and the character he played was the one who was in Oakland with Sterling K. Brown and T'Chaka, who was the king then. And I think the year was 1992.
Yeah.
And the other guy in the room I heard was Forrest Whitaker's son. I could be wrong, but that is what I heard. His performance in there, it wasn't great. It didn't help the part of the scene, I should say, and that was something I'm glad there wasn't much of him. Now, with that being said, Forrest Whitaker is badass in this movie. I loved what he did, and even him, he didn't have a big role. I would say it's minimal, but for what he did, it was very impactful. I want to see if you have any comments for the Martin Freeman part.
Okay, yeah, because you said a few things there that I'd like to hit on. I think Martin Freeman's character didn't bother me. I quite liked his arc too, because you find him in the casino. He seems a little shady or whatever, and he's kind of a dick, I guess. And by the end, he's being heroic. He's saving the day or whatever. He's putting his life on the line. I liked it. We didn't spend a whole lot of time with him to make me hate him. It wasn't like he was taking away too much from the movie. I was a fan of Martin Freeman. He wasn't one of the standouts or anything. He wasn't on the list of characters that jumped out to me. But I totally did not dislike Martin Freeman's performance, his character, or his scenes as a whole. You mentioned Forrest Whitaker. He is incredible, and the scene with him and Chadwick Boseman, where Forrest Whitaker kind of explains everything about the Oakland. That's where it opened, right? Yeah, Oakland opening. You know the scene I'm talking about. That scene was really powerful, and I thought that was a great stand-up moment for both Forrest Whitaker and Chadwick Boseman. You hit on one other thing there that I'm not. Oh yeah, the guy who played his son in the movie. I have heard a bunch of criticisms about his performance, but when watching the movie, it never stood out to me as bad.
For me, it didn't take away, but it didn't add to the scene. It was just all right. I can see why you're just standing there not doing much.
Yeah, see, I mean, what I didn't know it was his son. I never went, oh, this is a weird performance. This is a bad performance. It was just there, and I never questioned it one way or the other, which is signs of a good performance to me. If you're not questioning it, you're not seeing them act. But then again, I'm just one person. I've heard, including you, some others, not be too fond of it. So it doesn't bother me.
It wasn't big enough to really take away from the film. It was very small, so it's a tiny negative. It didn't affect my overall thoughts on the movie itself, because it didn't it's a really important moment, but it doesn't depend on him to act. It depends on Sterling K. Brown and I don't know the actor's name, but the guy who played the king then, T'Chaka.
Yeah, no, I'm not familiar with his name, but yeah. No, I see what you're saying. I find that a lot of my criticisms for this movie are just, it was this thing here, this thing there, this thing here. Nothing was major. Nothing jumps out as being awful or really bad about this movie. It's just like minor thing here and there,
Since we are here in spoilers, I want to mention something. And first, I'll make references to what I thought of while watching this. The first about 15-20 minutes, it felt, for anybody who's maybe played this game, or if you have, or if you haven't, this may be an endorsement for the game. is Assassin's Creed Origins. It is the game takes place in Egypt, and it's huge, and it has to deal a lot with culture and a father and a son. The first 15 to 20 minutes really felt like Assassin's Creed Origins, and even the fighting style reminded me a lot of Assassin's Creed Origins. And then we get on to the casino scene, and I heard a lot of people say it does have a James Bond type feel. It totally does, in the best way, with tech, this whole casino scene. The first act was just firing on all cylinders. Not to say the second or third wasn't; they were too, but just the world building and the tech and that whole casino scene to get you firing was just, I thought, amazing.
Yeah, I agree. The casino scene also had this great, they fake the oneer. They make it look like one shot where it's actually like, six. And I don't know if you caught that, but like the one long take was incredible. That was one of my favorite moments.
Yeah.
And that was when, Andy Serkis and his men show up, of course.
You know what? Not to cut you off there, since you mentioned Andy Serkis, I didn't talk about him in non-spoilers. I want to now. Andy Serkis, when he was in Age of Ultron, knowing then it was a setup for what's to come in Black Panther, then you were expecting him to be the major villain. And with seeing the movie, and again, that was, I think, 2015, or now 2018, with seeing the movie, I loved everything. I love Andy Serkis, whether he's Snoke,
sure,
whether he's Caesar, whatever he's doing, I love him. And I think it was just another thing he added to his resume. I think he was amazing, and I wanted more, but it really worked of why he, again, spoilers, since we're talking spoilers, is why he died. It totally worked, but I wanted more, but not in a bad way where I wanted more. It was a good way that I wanted more. And his death really, serviced the story.
Yeah, his death scene, I think, was one of the better scenes, too. I find that a lot of my favorite scenes in this movie are Michael B. Jordan Michael B. Jordan without the powers and without the suit. The opening scene with him at the museum, where with him and Andy Serkis, and they rob the vibranium. What was it? It was like an axe or something like that.
Yeah. I believe it was like an axe.
Yeah, that scene I thought was incredible. Probably the best scene in the movie. This scene,
and it was a good setup to show you who this character is.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, it worked. It worked in many ways. It was great. The scene, Andy Serkis's death scene with Michael B. Jordan was excellent. I really liked when they broke Andy Serkis out, when Michael B. Jordan broke him out. Like those two, like they're both villains. Michael B. Jordan's the main villain, but as a supporting villain, Andy Serkis was great, and he worked really well with Michael B. Jordan. I love every scene that those two are in. I think you lose a little. This is what I was talking about before with the CGI closer to the end. Once Killmonger, Michael B. Jordan, is in the suit, I think you lose a little bit. Maybe it's just because I was taken out of the movie a little bit from the CGI, and I thought it was quite goofy how they kept taking their masks off. It felt like they're only taking the masks off for the audience, because you'll see them react to something and then they'll put it back on. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah, one of the things, I think it was maybe one of the first times it happened, it was when the breakout scene happens, and then T'Challa, Black Panther, is chasing after them, and then Killmonger shoots him with a grenade launcher, I think, and then he falls back, and then he takes the mask off. And then sitting there, I was like, well, okay. Yeah. You didn't have to do that, but sure, all right, whatever.
Yeah,
and then after that, I was just kind of used to it.
It's very bizarre. It's not a big deal, but it was very bizarre. It was just because they want to, have these actors express how they're feeling. And, you're paying a lot of money for these guys, so let's see it. But, it was just funny where, they'd be fighting and then they'd take the mask off, look at something, have that reaction for the audience, put the mask back on. Can you not see under the mask?
Right.
But, that I just got me on sidetrack there. But, yeah.
The one thing about this film that also worked for me, and maybe it's complete opposite for you, or maybe you had a different feeling about this, but I do love when a comic book movie specifically, goes full comic book movie. But like we've seen in the Venom trailer recently, it wasn't about the comic bookiness of the product. With Black Panther, it didn't feel like which it may sound goofy to say, but in a way it felt grounded, which I know a good amount of the MCU movies do feel grounded, but it didn't feel like it was about the suit or superpowers. It just felt like a good human story that also involved superpowers and a suit. It didn't feel like it revolved around it being a comic book property, which I do love it when you go full comic book, but then I also do like when there's a movie that doesn't depend on it being a comic book property than just a human story, which I'm not sure if it hit you that way.
I think for the most part, I'd say it did. That never really jumped out to me as thinking of it that way, but I think the story and these characters are strong enough on their own, regardless of the superhero elements, that I'd say that's about right. Didn't hit me like that. I didn't, that's not something that jumped out like, oh, this is really mature, not really comic booky. But
Yeah,
it's a human story. That never...
I should say, when I'm watching it, I'm not thinking, oh wow, this is a great mature non-comic booky story. It just I do appreciate when a movie is just worried about telling a good story, then let's get a good action piece with the suit in here.
For sure. No, I agree, and I think this movie has it all. I think all the action moments work really well. They're what you come to expect from these movies, but they all work really well. But it also tells a very layered story with very developed characters that you can understand. I thought this movie handles every character really well. Each one, they all have their motivations, and you understand where they're coming from. Whether you're rooting for them or against them, you get it. You get everything, and they give each one the proper amount of screen time. Every side character, I thought Martin Freeman, even though you didn't like him, worked really well. Daniel Kaluuya, who his arc was really interesting to me. His relationship with Black Panther and then his relationship with Michael B. Jordan was really interesting. This movie knew how to handle its characters, and that plays towards what you were saying, where it's beyond a comic book movie. It does feel grounded in that way. I would agree. Yes, and
it does have a it is trying to tell you a I see I'm losing my thoughts here, but with Michael B. Jordan as a African American instead of just an African, it has a story it wants to tell you. It is but without hammering you over the head, which can be a good thing, can be a bad thing. I felt they had Ryan Coogler and the writers, they had a story they wanted to tell, and they told it, and it definitely worked through Michael B. Jordan being in for his character and him being an African American, and then talking to a African of the for in this world of the MCU, the difference between the two and what issues they have to deal with. I felt like I just butchered my words there, but I'm not sure if you want to add anything on to that.
I think I get what you're saying, and if I could just add on to that, this movie, it is smart. Shit, I kind of just lost what I was saying. This movie is smart, and it knows what it's going for, and it doesn't beat you over the head. Maybe for a couple lines here or there, but for the most part, it's subtle. What was nice is it's not about the evil white man, right? It's never making it's not enticing race wars or anything. It's just about problems within these communities of characters, right? That they've seen in their life, specifically Michael B. Jordan and his motivations to do what he's doing because of those problems. And the ending on the basketball court, where Black Panther and what's her name? What's her
Shuri,
name?
I think.
Shuri, yes. When they're at the basketball court and they're bringing the Wakandan technology to the real world, was very much what Michael B. Jordan wanted to do. The end of the movie, they're really, of course he wanted to do it in maybe a more sinister way, more with weapons, but he still wanted to introduce it to the world and help his people, right? This is exactly what Black Panther's doing at the end in more of a hero way. They eventually Chadwick Boseman got to where Michael B. Jordan wanted with a different span, and I thought that was really interesting, and that just supported Michael B. Jordan's character.
Yeah.
I thought that
You know,
ending added to his depth.
I do want to mention one thing, and it's very minor, and it does work into the good. Is I do believe it was in the first full trailer. It's when Michael B. Jordan, in the line in the trailer, he says it like, "I've been waiting my entire life for this moment." And in the trailer, I was like, "Well, it's a good line, but it felt like it was overcooked in the trailer." I'm glad when in the movie when he finally walks in, and it was just more, "I've been waiting my entire life for this." It felt more sincere to say than goofy, which I thought the line in the trailer came off goofy.
When was that
really
part
worked
in the movie?
I believe it is when he gets to Wakanda, and then he's in the throne room, I guess I would say, which is not really like it's where the king sits and everybody meets. It's when he walks in there, and then he's saying, I think it's after when he reveals that who he is and who his father was. And then he says, "I've been waiting my entire life for this moment."
Right. Oh, okay. And that reminds me of the trials for
Yes.
to become the
Okay.
king.
You know what? I'm glad you mentioned that. The two we see are fucking amazing.
Yeah, they're so
I think
good.
the whole ritual of it and the whole choreography of it, the fighting style, everybody around, the whole ritual itself is, I think, amazing. It was one of the strongest things in the movie for me.
Yeah, no, those scenes, yeah, I loved it. And you get an understanding of what Wakanda is like throughout this movie. They develop a lot. I believe you mentioned that earlier. They develop it a lot. And I still want to know more, and that's not a negative. It's just it's very interesting what's going on here, especially those two trial scenes. I thought,
and not to cut you off, with what you're saying there, with watching the Infinity War trailer after seeing Black Panther, it does add to when you see the shot of them in Wakanda, and it looks like a humongous battle about to happen. For seeing Black Panther, and again, I could just maybe when we see Infinity War, it's not the case, but I feel like now with seeing Wakanda and Black Panther, it will mean more to see that scene than just if suddenly in Infinity War there was no Black Panther form, we pop up and we're in Wakanda, and we don't really care about the environment. I feel like because of the world building in Black Panther, we will care much more when we see Infinity War and we are in Wakanda and a humongous battles coming out. Now I know that it's not about the review of Black Panther, but that's just something I also thought of, and you can get back to what you were saying.
No, I think it's a fair point to make, even though it's not specifically about Black Panther. It's establishes how much you actually gave a shit about the location stuff. I think that's important for future films going ahead. You care about this environment. If I were to just say another negative here, you mentioned it, but a lot of it's gonna be maybe a weird criticism, but a lot of the tech felt more like a plot device, just like it was kind of like, oh, that's convenient. It's not a big deal. I just noticed like I don't even remember what the bead necklace things were for 100%, but I do remember them being like, oh, well, that's a kind of convenient piece of technology, and all the holograms. It's not a big deal. That's what you get. They're like a really advanced civilization, so maybe it's even silly just me mentioning it, but it felt like that, maybe just in the back of my mind, or something felt off about it.
For me, it totally worked. The tech, I wasn't thinking too much about it, so for me, I didn't think it was a plot device. But sure, I mean, it can be for better or worse. For me, it was better, but I thought it was I thought the tech was really neat and new. I loved the thing that they would throw on cars or whatever, and then you could virtually take over it. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I think for the most part it was cool. And the two like virtual I don't know what you would call them, but the car scenes that you're mentioning, the two times we see it, I think work really well. Especially we get Martin Freeman moment at the end. I think works a lot better because we've already seen that tech earlier.
Yeah.
So it's less about the tech there, and it's more about the moment. Where in the first scene was like, oh, look how cool this is. So I think for the most part, yeah, that works. Can we just talk about one thing?
We can talk about one thing.
The "what are those" line feels like they shot that 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I just like.
Okay, I'll say this: the bit itself, I think, doesn't work, but for the context of what happens after, I think it works. So with the whole bit when she says it, I'm like, okay, yeah, this does feel like it's dated, but then when she's introducing this new like boot,
Okay.
it works.
Yes.
It works
Okay.
for me.
The
But the bit
sneakers
itself
joke-
doesn't work, but the payoff does.
Okay. Yeah. The sneakers joke, I believe that's right after because it's the same time.
Yeah.
Talking, was great. I mean, it redeemed it. Also, my girlfriend had an interesting point about she's trying to get into like, oh damn it, I don't want to butcher her words. I'm gonna misquote her, but she was talking about how this character is trying to be culturally relevant, and she does have a bunch of like cultural references, and maybe she's a little bit slow and like she's just trying to get there from like past, because culture flies so quickly. It was something like that, and I thought it was a really interesting point because she was defending that character, which I was just like critiquing the moment, so I'm maybe butchering her words, but that's for the most part what she's saying, which I thought was interesting. And
well, maybe to add to that, which may not in a way, but I do feel that character of her being young, and even when you see if there's somebody out there who is religious and your family goes to church a lot, well, there might be the young person who can follow that, but is different about it. They don't want to do all these same rituals or go to a church or do this or do that, as to where her as a character, I think, especially with young people, you can identify because there's this whole ritual going on, and she's just like, can we get this going? Can it be over already?
I think that worked really
so
well.
if you're young, I think you can identify a lot with that.
Yeah, I think a lot of her point was the age, her being young, and where she lives, she's a little bit far behind from like more American references. So that's what she was getting at, and her character does work, I think, for the most part. Of course, I commented on it in non-spoilers, and I'll continue to comment on it. She is funny, and all her moments work really well, especially complemented by her age, like you were saying, where she just wanted the ritual over with. I thought she was great. The "what are those" comment just threw me off completely. But again, this is one of just the small details that jumped out to me. There's nothing major. I mean, what else? Oh, if you've seen Game of Thrones, do you watch Game of Thrones?
I'll do a quick little divert. I was one of the people who was like, I didn't watch it for years, and everybody's telling me it's the greatest thing, and I was like, it's probably not going to be the greatest thing because I'm hearing so much about it, and I have these built-up expectations. In the summer, I binged the whole thing, and I got to a place. It's my favorite show ever.
Oh, sweet. I agree with you. It's my favorite show ever, too. So, did you notice the big Game of Thrones parallel in this movie during the final battle?
Did I? Are you talking about when Black Panther walks out into this big... Are we referencing the Battle of the Bastards?
We are referencing the Battle of the Bastards, but it's not when Black Panther
Yeah.
walks out, which is interesting because that's another one. But when they're all surrounded by Kaluuya's men with shields,
I know where you're going with this. Yeah,
and then that other tribe comes in and saves the day.
I didn't. It wasn't so much where I was like, oh yeah, this is like with you saying that. Now I can connect it, but I did have small moments of thinking of Battle of the Bastards. But with you mentioning that, yes, I totally
See, as soon as they were surrounded by the shields, I'm like, oh shit, this is Battle of the Bastards. And then lo and behold, we get the people coming in, Ex Machina. They come in and save the day. I mean, that might just be like a film trope in general. The good guys are in peril. What's gonna happen? Someone has to save them. But I just thought it was funny because they were circled by shields the exact same way they were in Battle of the Bastards, and the people that were mentioned earlier, whether in conversation or actually in the scene, came in and saved the day. Just thought it was interesting. It's not a big deal.
You know what? I gotta say, with that, the way that fight ends, it did feel refreshing in a way because most big battles you see, it ends with somebody's got to kill somebody, which, of course, it's a big battle. You'd expect that. But I do like how it ended with Daniel Kaluuya's character. And do you remember the character's name of what would be Black Panther's bodyguard, essentially?
No. I don't remember the name.
Aoki, I think. Since those two, I believe they are married in the film. They do say that. I believe so. Well, they have a relationship. And how the battle ends, I thought, was in a nice way. When she steps in front of this whole rhino that he's on, and he's about to kill somebody, but obviously he stops because that's his wife, I do believe. I believe that's
I
his
believe
wife.
it's his ex-wife.
Or ex-wife. Well, they got a relationship. So I do like how it is, how it ends of him saying, "Would you really kill me?" And what does she say? "For Wakanda, I would."
Yes.
And then that's
yeah.
when they all stand down. For me, that really worked.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of the moments at the end really worked. For some reason, that just reminded me of the scene where Black Panther was revived. I think it was a little rushed. The scene together was a little rushed. You're without Black Panther for a while, and I think that works because the supporting cast is so good. Black Panther almost takes a
Yeah.
backseat in some moments in his own movie, which is fine because, the cast of characters, especially like the three women, were incredible.
Yes.
And they worked really well.
Yes,
But the
they
scenes
were.
in specific when Black Panther comes back to felt like they're trying to do this big, oh my god, look who's back. But it was like, yeah, I knew who's come back, but it's a cool moment. For some reason, the battle at the end where you're talking about that reminded me of that. Maybe it's because I thought the battle went too quick. I don't know. But yeah, the character's name who we were talking about being his, I think it was if they had a former relationship. I'm not sure. Anyways, when she's fighting Michael B. Jordan's character, and one of her, I don't know if she wasn't really a big character. The one gets struck down. She's like, Wakanda forever, or whatever. That was a moment that stood out as being a highlight in that final battle. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there because, you had that moment that you commented on. I was quite a fan of that moment.
One moment that almost got me where I was starting to buy into it, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, they're not going to do this, was when it's in that battle, and then Killmonger is being attacked by Shuri and Lupita Nyong'o's character, Nikita, I think, and he kicks off Nikita, and then he goes after Shuri, and then it looks as if he's about to kill her, and then you see Black Panther. He sees it and he goes running off. I was starting to be like, oh shit, is this actually going to happen? But in the back of my mind, I'm like, there's no way this is happening. But it was a nice moment of suspense, I would say.
Yeah. I would, yeah, sorry, I'm just here thinking, I'm trying to figure out the relationship. I think I'm wrong. I think you're right. Yeah, sorry.
That is all right.
I was just it was really bothering me if we both weren't 100% sure. Yeah, I think for the most part, this movie is great. And the end battle, because it does, there's this moment where Black Panther's gone, and, maybe some moments around there we get more Martin Freeman that maybe it slows down a bit, and then it hits the battle at the end. And some moments you've mentioned, and the one I've mentioned were all standouts in this final battle. It felt like a very layered battle. You had so many things going on with so many different characters.
Yeah, and you had the emotion behind it.
Yeah, I was just about to say so many dramatic and emotional moments that, as one of the final battles in the MCU, I think it's one of the better ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. I think I've said all I wanted to, and eventually I'm just gonna get to the point where I'm just reaching to say more things. Yeah, it still feels.
Well, yeah. Do you have any final thoughts of how you want to wrap your general thoughts of?
Yeah,
I should say.
I'll do that. Look, if you're listening this far, you've seen it already, or you just don't care about spoilers, in which case you should see it. For the most part, it's one of the better standalone Marvel movies. It has wonderful characters. That's arguably the best part of this movie, with great music. That's another great thing that stood out. It still feels very Marvel-y. So there's that. So if you've been a fan of the MCU, like most of the public, you're good to go with this movie. I wasn't blown away. I'm glad that we waited a couple days to talk about it, though I forgot some things, some more minor things, or things I wasn't as passionate about. It gave me a moment to dwell. Gave me some moments to dwell on what I really liked. There's some MCU movies I watch where I'm caught up in the moment after seeing it, where, wow, that was so much fun. I loved it. And then, you wait a couple days and you think back on maybe some of the lesser things, and because you lose that hype. This
Yeah.
movie I found was the opposite for me. I watched and I was like, that was good. It was a good MCU movie. We wait a couple days and I look back and I reflect on all the more subtler moments, and I'm much more satisfied with the movie today than I was 2 days ago. So go see this movie. It's a great movie. I'd probably give it like a light 8. Somewhere around there, like 7, a strong 7 to a light 8, somewhere around there. Yeah, I think it's really good to a great movie, and I would recommend it for anyone. You don't have to see other MCU movies to get it. There's references, but they work in this movie on its
Yeah.
own. So if
It
you want to
definitely stands on its own.
yeah, sorry, that was a long closing piece, but just wanted to hit some things that we never got to, so you can give us your closing piece.
All right, my closing thoughts would be, I love this movie. I think there's some issues I have with it, but are very minor. There's not one big thing that I look at this movie and say, this really took me out of it. I think it is a phenomenal movie. It's a movie with a message, and that works. I think it is, for me, Civil War would be my favorite. Now, some of you may disagree, but for me, it was the best MCU movie since Civil War. I enjoy most of them, but to me, this was one of the great ones. For me, it was one of the best standalone ones. I wouldn't want to say it is yet. I'd want to be able to think about it more because I've had these movies for a long time. Even Ragnarok I've had for 3 months. So I'd want to be able to see this a few more times before I can say, this is where I'd rank it. I think it is a great film. If you haven't seen it, go see it. If you haven't seen it, I don't know what the hell you're doing this far in, but go see it. I think this is a movie that not only you can see one time, you can see it multiple times. I know I'm going to see it multiple times. I'm looking forward to those times. I think this is a movie that's firing on all cylinders. If I were to give it a rating, I would go a solid 8. It is a solid 8. I think this is a great movie. I think it works on its own, and the connective tissue that is there, it works, and it's not over the head. And before we go, I want to say one thing about the two post-credit scenes.
Oh shit!
The first
Yeah,
one.
we should talk
The
about
first one. When it starts, I'm like, are they about to do an Iron Man mixed with an Iron Man 2? For a moment, I was like, man, is he really just going to walk out and be like, I am the Black Panther and just give a whole spiel? I'm glad that wasn't what happened. It was just revealing Wakanda and their technology. I did like it. At first, I was like, wait a minute, are we doing an Iron Man and an Iron Man 2? Glad we didn't do that. I'm glad it was just revealing Wakanda. And I was expecting something of not necessarily an Infinity War setup, but a Bucky thing. So I'm glad we got to see him. It wasn't much. It's just him waking up, being like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" And it was nice to see a little something.
Yeah. Oh, I guess we should talk about that, but I just give my thoughts really quick. It was nice to see Winter Soldier. We knew just from the end of Civil War that he's gonna be involved somehow, and I just figured it would be him for the end credit scene. And the one before that, I almost think could have worked in the movie. You didn't have to put it after that little animated credit sequence. It was an amazing scene, and really touching, and really summed up a lot of this movie's themes. So that was a strong scene. Should have mentioned that, damn it. But yeah, really good.
All right. Well, yeah, I think I think for now I've said what I wanted to say. I'm sure when we end this, there's going to be a million things I think of that I want to say, which we'll be able to follow up later on when we do main shows, which I got to say, Black Panther, amazing movie. Go check it out.
Yeah. And that's all. I mean, I think I screwed up with their relationship. I think they are currently in a relationship, and I think I'm just a fucking idiot. But yeah, that's all for this review. I'd say we went a little longer than we expected, but go check out Black Panther. And that's all. All right. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.